Previously, we've spoken about Plantoids and all the traits and civics that we'll be receiving. However, they are not alone in the LEM update. Humanoids will also be receiving some additions that make sure that the pack, similar to Plantoids, is not just a cosmetic pack. No, actual mechanics, civics, and origins are going to be part of this rigmarole. Let's dive into the new civics and origin that you can expect from the Humanoids update for Stellaris. Now, there is a couple of things here. We've already touched upon one of these in the past, and that was, of course, Masterful Crafters. Now, Masterful Crafters, as we've said before, replaces artisans with artificers. Now, artisans right now, you sit on your world, they come out of industrial districts, and industrial districts generate an artisan job and a metallurgist job. Now, artisans, as of right now, generate, of course, the whole joy of consumer goods. And as you know, at the start of the game, you'll start off with two of them, depending on the type of traits you have and the type of empire. But with Masterful Crafters, artisans will be replaced with artificers, and they will produce additional consumer goods, which is rather nice. Additional consumer goods is always helpful because it basically will keep your economy rolling. And there's a couple of tie-ins here as well to some of the other civics, which I think is really, really cool. In addition to that, you will get additional trade value, which is really nice, and you'll get an additional amount of engineering research. According to the tooltip that we have at the moment, it is 1.1 engineering research, but I'm pretty sure that is due to the 10% bonus on engineering traits and all that jazz. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be a flat rate of 1 engineering research. Now, engineering research is actually a really curious one, because if we go into the tree here for engineering, there is quite a lot of good stuff to be had here. So let's take a look under research and then specifically under engineering. A lot of the resource economy stuff is in here, but also mega engineering, torpedoes and kinetic weapons and all that stuff is in here. So there's a lot of really good stuff. And finally, the anti-gravity engineering and weather control systems, which are they are gatekeeping technologies for Ecumenopole, which will tie into Masterful Crafters really nicely. And you will be able to get a metric ton of consumer goods because of this, and having a bonus to engineering is particularly helpful, especially at the start of the game when you only have a relatively limited amount of engineering research. So artisans, or artificers in this particular case, will allow you to get some good bonuses and give you the opportunity to rush the engineering tree relatively fast early on. In addition to that, for every 3 industrial districts can of course be found on the planetary summary, you will get 1 building slot. So on planets with a lot of industrial districts, you'll be able to get a lot of building slots relatively early on, which you can then transfer into, say, civilian industries to get even more artificers, or you can use any of your other buildings to get cool bonuses throughout, which I think is really cool. I really like it when mechanics really change things around, especially civics, and artisans into artificers I think is going to be a great addition to the game, especially if you want to play or role play as a, say, Dwarven Empire. Artificers really ties into that. Very much focused on creating materials is really nice, and then the trade, of course, because you're trading those consumer goods, which is really cool. One thing that we do want to note is the additional industrial districts bonus for building slots do not apply to habitats. But the general idea here is that it gives you more flexibility on how to play as your empire. There's a couple of different ones here as well that are already existent within the game already. For instance, if we go to our reform government stuff and we take a look at, say, I don't want to say material, where is it? The guys that change your people into duelists, warrior culture obviously, where entertainers turn into duelists, which will give you additional alloys and naval capacity, which by itself is a nice little tie-in here. The real question is whether or not you can mix these two up and then get warrior culture artificers, and then get crazy bonuses through other things as well, because alloys into Unity is rather nice in addition to this, because if you have so many consumer goods, you can just go into the trade market and then sell off your consumer goods and just buy all the alloys, which you can then transition into Unity, which I think would be a really nice little synergy to have here. Then it's time to move on, because we're going to have something a little bit darker, maybe. Are you ready to anger bang Slaanesh into existence? Because pleasure seekers are now a thing. Now, the thing with this particular update for Humanoids is that it's very quote-unquote fantasy orientated, and pleasure seekers definitely goes into the direction of elves. Yeah, they live for so long, they need to have new experiences, and pleasure seekers are definitely in that ballpark. Now, pleasure seekers will, instead of getting some cool flat bonuses, they do have some of them, they will get access to a brand new living standard. Now, living standards are, of course, under the species tab, under setting rights, and under living standards in this particular case. Now, they will get access to a new living standard called Decadent Lifestyle. Now, the Decadent Lifestyle gives you a plus 20% bonus to happiness. There's only one other type of living standards that does this, which is Utopian Abundance, which, in addition to the happiness bonus, gives you a unemployment bonus, basically, where you get unity and technology. It's very, very good, but it's also very expensive due to the upkeep bonus. Unlike Utopian Abundance, pleasure seekers will have a smaller amount of consumer good upkeep while still retaining that plus 20% bonus to happiness, which is really, really good. But they do have a plus 10% pop consumer goods upkeep modifier, which could potentially cause some problems in the long run. But once again, you could potentially mix this up with, say, I don't know, the artificers, and get even more consumer goods. In addition to that, pop growth from entertainers. Entertainers are, of course, the type of pop that are coming out of the pleasure houses, specifically the holo theaters, and they will increase pop growth. Whatever goes on in those holo theaters, we don't know, but whatever it is, it increases pop growth. In addition, servants, which are a type of prisoners with job pops, will produce 5 additional amenities, which is really, really powerful. If you have a large amount of amenities, you will get a larger citizen pop happiness bonus, which then translates into other bonuses as well, such as, happiness increases, I believe, does it increase stability from jobs, pop approval? Yeah, it will increase pop approval in general, and then you will get even more production output, which is really, really nice. It's not compatible with warrior culture, however, or shared burdens or slaver guilds. Warrior culture makes perfect sense because, entertainers are turned into duelists and all that stuff. Shared burdens, they have their own particular pop lifestyles, and slaver guilds, well, if you want to turn 40% of your population to prisoners with jobs, this is a good thing to do. Now, the one thing that is important is that the developers have, in fact, alluded to the idea that if you take this Civic and on top of that go down the psionic ascension path, that in the scenario where you get the instrument of desire patron, stuff may go very wrong. And remember what I said about anger banging Slaanesh into existence? Yeah, I do hope that Pleasure Seekers goes down that route, because that would be so much fun. I cannot understate this. How much fun that would be. Sure, it may not be the end, so to speak, but having a god along the galaxy that eats everybody's souls, and you are going to need to put your own soul in some sort of phylactery in order to make sure that they are safe, causes some very interesting scenarios to pop up, especially from a role-playing point of view. But yeah, the Pleasure Seekers will be available as part of Humanoids. And sadly, that is the end of the Civics. There's only 2 of them so far. Maybe we'll get more in the future. And of course, the Custodians project is always busy working on new ways to put fresh paint over existing content. But now we have arrived at our very last item on the list, which is a origin. It is called a clone army. Now, instead of having 200,000 units ready and 1 million more on the way, clone armies are a little bit different in this particular aspect. It's not 100% clear if this is a story-based origin or a pure mechanics one. There are some great mechanics here that I can see doing some very, very cool things with the game itself, but it also kind of implies that there is storyline to be had here, and if so, that could be really, really fun, especially, again, from a role-playing point of view. Allow me to narrate to you the story tooltip here. A species of short-lived and infertile soldier clones, exceptionally proficient in the matters of war, left masterless and alone to question their engineered purpose and uncertain fate. Now, with the end of Bad Batch happening a couple of weeks ago now, I want to say about a week as of the recording of this video, this could not have come at a better time, because if you are wanting to reenact the Grand Army of the Republic scenario and, I don't know, become Emperor of the First Galactic Empire and all that jazz, then starting with the Clone Army origin may be right up your alley. Now, let's talk about the effects that you can expect from the Clone Army, because I do have quite a lot of mechanics behind them, and they are rather interesting. First of all, Clone Armies start off with 2 ancient cloning vat buildings on their homeworld, which produce clone soldier pops. And this is the only way they can get pops. Unless, of course, migration treaties and all that jazz. You can only have 5 of these ancient cloning vats in your empire. That includes the 2 that you get on your homeworld, which implies that if you want to really focus on your clone soldiers, well, you're going to have to play very, very tall, fill up your core worlds, and then let the population migration deal with the outlying worlds here. Finally, clone admirals will be granted a 25% ship fire rate bonus and a 10% reduced ship upkeep bonus, basically mixing the firepower admiral as well as the engineering admiral together into one nice shape. Now, if we are lucky, we may be able to get a cool admiral here. Now, we just got Trickster and Gale Speed, but this in combination with the basic points you can get from your clone admirals, it is gonna be crazy good. And if you could even combine that with, say, Fanatic Purifiers, all bets are off, and you can go completely off the rails, because a 25% bonus, a 33% bonus, shipbuilding bonuses, this is an unstoppable force. But your bottleneck is pops. So yeah, let's take a quick look here at the clones themselves. They cannot be genetically modified. They cannot be reproduce. They cannot bang other pops into existence. Let's put it that way. Their governing ethics attraction is plus 50. So whatever ethics you have, your pops are going to be laser focused on those governing ethics, which basically means that your factions that you pick early game based on your ethics are going to be super powerful. You'll be able to get so many pops in those factions and get them all in the green, get crazy amounts of influence through that, which is nice. Factions should still be overhauled, but that is a discussion for another day. And leader lifespan has been reduced by 40 years, so instead of saying around 80 years, they will only last about 40 years. So you will be inclined to go for, say, mind and body to get additional leader lifespan, but then again, supremacy is looking pretty darn good here. Of course, this system is going to be changing as well. And finally, army damage plus 50%, so I don't know, nobody really cares about armies, but you get the general idea. Could you potentially combine this with with the the resurrected armies? I think you could. Let's take a quick here under our government and reforming here. Not Fanatic Purifiers, Death Cult. Were they under there? No, they were not. Reanimated armies, yeah. You could potentially mix this with reanimated armies, which would be really, really fun. Because then you can also get undead armies, and then they will have a 50% bonus. Could be pretty powerful if, you know, armies were any good. At least in their current shape. But yeah, then we move on towards the cloning vat building. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Now, cloning vats by themselves, like I said, you'll have 2 of them on your world, and they will produce and sustain, yes, sustain a certain amount of clone soldiers. We don't know the actual number. Now, this basically implies that you will only have so many pops that can be supported by your cloning vats, which is really cool. I like this idea. It basically forces you to get migration treaties and all that stuff, and in order to make sure that your pops can survive, you can only have this many pops on your planets. Now, on top of that, they will also get a monthly organic pop assembly bonus of +7 at the start of the game. The minimum is 100 to get a single pop, which means I'm gonna guess around 13 months to get a pop up and running, probably around 14. And then, you know, because of the way pop growth works these days with, planet capacity and population capacity, carrying capacity, all that jazz, it's only going to go up. But you'll be able to get an insane amount of pop growth relatively early on, and then it just tapers off because, you know, you can only sustain so many pops. But in the meantime, you can still grow normal pops from migration treaties or, I don't know, prisoners with jobs. So you're kind of be looking at a very tall playing empire here with potentially some slavery. Or making a lot of friends everywhere. I don't know. The sky's the limit. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of fun with these. But once again, you can have only 5 of these cloning vats, and they only each of them only sustains an X amount of soldiers. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if you can unlock technology to increase the carrying capacity of the cloning vats. So that is pretty interesting. And on top of that, they are going to be a power to be reckoned with on the field because they'll be able to, you know, get more firepower, which I think is cool. Now you can combine Clone Army also with Masterful Crafters and Pleasure Seekers, probably at the same time, which would be rather curious. And on top of that, finally, these are not portrait locked. So you can have any portrait pack and use them wherever. Do you want to have lithoids and use these? You can. If you want to have plantoids, you can use these. Yeah, you can. So that is cool, though. But they will have some ethic and competing civic restrictions, which I think is really, really fun. I think overall this is a nice little addition to the Humanoids pack, and I do think the Custodians are doing a great job getting this out and adding more value to both Humanoids as well as Plantoids, in addition to all the updates that will be receiving the 3.1 update. A very exciting time for Stellaris with a lot of role-playing potential, but also new mechanics and new ways of playing the game. We've seen it in Plantoids, now we're seeing with this. Very exciting stuff. So what do you think out there on the internets? You, sir, I'm going to call you Dan. If you are Dan, you will be very surprised right now, but there is only like an X percentage chance that your name is Dan, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, what do you think? Are these civics up your alley? Are you ready to play the Space Dwarves? Are you ready to bring the Pleasure Seekers to heat and, I don't know, once again, anger bang Slaanesh into existence? Or are you going to be playing as the Grand Army of the Republic and get the clones up and running and making sure those 1 million clones that are on the way are going to be super useful, or, you know, following any sort of orders of the 66 variety? Put your comments down below. Looking forward to them. We're going to wrap things up here. Thank you for watching, and thank you as well, patrons, for continuing to be awesome. If you want to get involved into the Patreon program, feel free to click the link in the channel in the description below, and then we can take it from there. Anyway, we're going to go wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves And as always, clones. Where are we going next?